Hello and welcome, my dear friend. Let's talk about something deeper than love, something even more sacred: trust. Love is powerful, no doubt. It shows up in our weakness, wraps itself around us, and pulls us through. But trust? Trust is something else. It's personal. It says, I see you. I see the parts no one else notices, and still, I place this in your hands. You trust God, absolutely. But here's what we don't talk about enough: God trusts you too. And honestly, that means everything. Even if nobody else ever acknowledges it. Even if no one claps for you or sees what you're carrying, you know it. And deep down, that knowing is enough. None of this was random. The life you were given, the weight you carry, it's not because you needed to be broken or humbled. It's because God saw something in you. Something solid. Something sacred. Something maybe you hadn't even realized about yourself yet. He didn't just love you, He trusted you. Not with comfort. Not with ease. But with spiritual assignments that often showed up looking a lot like burdens. And you didn't just make it through. You came through with your heart still soft, your soul still standing, and your integrity fully intact. That's rare, that's sacred. Think about it: the weight you've carried, the pain no one saw, the strength it took to keep going when no one could help, when no one even knew the depth of your struggle. That wasn't an accident. That was evidence. Evidence that heaven looked at you and said, this one can handle it. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you're built differently. And let's be real, you didn't sign up for this. You didn't ask for the deep insight, the heavy dreams, or the kind of sorrow that feels ancient, like it's been passed down through generations. You didn't apply to be this kind of vessel. You were chosen, so when people ask why you seem different, why you withdraw when the room gets loud, why your smile feels real but carries a weight, why your eyes hold both softness and strength at the same time, this is why you've been entrusted with something sacred. And you've learned how to carry it without dropping it. That's not something people need to tell you. You already know how rare that is. You've lived it. Years of holding things in. Of spiritual isolation. Of becoming your own witness when no one else understood. That's trust. Not the kind that gets attention, but the kind that heaven honors. Most people think when God trusts you, it shows up as a platform, a title, a blessing everyone can see. But divine trust? It often hides. It shows up as endurance. As the ability to carry things silently, faithfully. That no one will ever applaud you for. You've lived that. You've earned that. Heaven saw every moment. Every time you held your tongue. Every time you chose to pray when it felt like nothing was changing. Every time you stayed standing when you wanted to collapse. Every time the fire burned inside you, but you refused to let it burn anyone else. That's what trust looks like in the kingdom. You weren't just trusted to carry the weight, you were trusted to carry it well, not by shutting down. Not by becoming bitter. But by staying close to God, even when He felt silent. That's a kind of maturity no one can teach you. But heaven counts it, every time you forgave without an apology. Every time you cried alone but still chose to encourage someone else, every time you gave peace when you barely had any left for yourself, that was never wasted. That was never unseen. You were qualifying yourself for a reality you couldn't yet imagine, and now things are shifting, not because God suddenly sees you differently, but because you're starting to see yourself through His eyes. You're realizing that the weight wasn't just there to resist you, it was refining you. You were being shaped by the way you carried it. Quietly. Without the spotlight. Without complaining. Without turning your heart cold. That is what made you trustworthy. That's what made you someone God can use anywhere, anytime, this next season you're stepping into. It's not a reward. It's not a prize. It's a result. A result of walking with integrity when no one was watching. This is where divine trust turns into divine transfer. And here's the wild part: you won't have to force your way in. You won't have to convince anyone. Doors will open quietly. Without big announcements. Not because of effort, but because of consistency. You've shown up for years. Even when it cost you. Even when it didn't make sense, so don't be surprised when your next chapter feels like a room you were never invited to. That's how it will start. But the truth, you weren't invited. You were sent because validation isn't your fuel, trust is. Sent to places where trust is needed more than talent. Where your peace will stabilize chaos. Where your words won't just comfort, they'll heal. Where your presence alone will expose what's false without even saying a word, because spiritual trust doesn't show up as applause. It shows up as placement. You've already proven you can handle being overlooked. Now heaven is about to show you what it looks like to be seen, by the right people, not by those who just want your energy and give nothing back, not by those who only understand you when they need you, but by the ones who look at you and immediately know, this one carries something holy. And it's not for show. You're not being promoted. You're being revealed. There's a difference. Promotion suggests you climbed higher. Revelation means what was always in you is finally being seen. The qualities you've carried for years, compassion that breaks patterns, discernment sharp enough to protect without harming, patience that saves others before they even realize it, that's who you've always been, you just carried it in silence. But now, God is saying, it's time. Time to move in authority, but without the weight that used to come with it. Let me tell you something personal. If it ever felt like the battle around your life suddenly intensified, like the spiritual warfare ramped up out of nowhere, it wasn't because you were doing something wrong. It was because the enemy finally recognized what you were carrying. He doesn't go after empty vessels, he targets the ones filled with oil, and you? You were carrying more than you realized. Anointing. Authority. Wisdom. Grace under pressure. Discernment that wasn't just learned, it was imparted. The kind of oil that can only be pressed out through pain, through isolation. Through long seasons where you had to choose faith without feeling a thing, but here's where everything shifts. You're not just carrying it anymore, you're becoming it. This isn't about just surviving the hard seasons anymore. It's about stepping fully into your spiritual assignment. Not for applause. Not for attention. But because God has whispered, this one can be trusted with more. So what do you do now? You walk differently. You speak differently. You love differently. You don't throw your pearls at anyone who doesn't recognize their value. You don't drain yourself to rescue people who haven't asked to be rescued. You don't overshare sacred things with ears that aren't ready to hear them. Because you know what you carry, and you understand now that not everyone deserves access to that. You protect it, not because it's fragile, but because it's rare. You're not fragile. You're refined. The fire didn't destroy you, it defined you. You've got a resilience that doesn't need to shout. A strength that doesn't need to prove itself. And a faith that no longer relies on constant reassurance that so if lately you felt watched, observed, evaluated, not by people, but spiritually, you're not crazy, you've been in a divine evaluation. Not to disqualify you, but to confirm you, to confirm that the alignment you've cultivated in private is strong enough to handle what's coming in public. That your motives are clean. That your heart is steady. That you won't misuse the authority that's about to be placed in your hands. You've passed, it's already done, the shift is in motion, and you'll know it, not by a big emotional moment, but by a deep, unshakable peace that doesn't leave you, even when the world shakes again. That kind of peace only comes when your spirit is rooted, when you've been proven in silence, when you've walked through enough fire to know you're not afraid of the heat anymore. This next chapter. It's not going to look like striving. It's going to look like stability, because that's what divine trust brings. Not always status. Not always spotlight. But a level of spiritual stability that can't be faked. God didn't just love you, He entrusted you. And not with things anyone could see. He trusted you with things fragile people would have broken. With secrets that could have made you bitter, but you chose reverence. With silence that could have made you resentful, but you turned it into wisdom. And now, He's about to trust you with more. This is where you stop doubting what you carry. This is where you stop minimizing it just to make other people comfortable. this is where you walk into every room knowing you weren't just brought there to take up space. You were placed. Intentionally. Strategically. Because something about you, your presence, your story, your clarity, your gentleness, shifts the atmosphere. That's why certain people feel exposed around you. Not because you're judging them, but because your presence carries truth. And when people are still addicted to the surface, truth feels like confrontation. You weren't made to fit in, you were designed to stand out. Not for the sake of being different, but because what you carry can't be diluted. There's a fire in your eyes now, and you don't need to apologize for it. There are tears in your prayers, and they aren't signs of weakness. They're evidence that your heart still beats for something bigger than yourself. There's a stillness in you that unsettles those who thrive in chaos. Let them be unsettled. You didn't come to entertain. You came to transform, so what now? You honor the wait. You don't rush into rooms just because the door is open. You ask God, is this a place where trust is needed? You speak only when necessary. You love deeply but with boundaries. You protect your energy like the sacred oil it is, because not everything deserves your fire. You've spent too long learning how to keep it burning to waste it in places that don't value warmth. This next part of your journey is about intentionality. Not everyone gets to come with you. Not every platform deserves your voice. Not every opportunity is aligned with your assignment, and that's okay. God is revealing, not just elevating. And what's being revealed in you is something only heaven could have planted. Years of hidden growth. Hidden prayer. Hidden sacrifices. Now, it's time for it to bloom. But not for show, for impact, because this world doesn't just need more noise, it needs people like you. People who've been through the fire and came out refined, not burned. People who know how to walk into a room without demanding attention, yet shift everything in the spirit just by showing up. You're not stepping into a spotlight, you're stepping into a spiritual role, one that was tailor-made for the depth you've developed in silence. So don't let anyone minimize what you carry. Not now. Not anymore. You know what it cost. And God knows too. Every silent yes. Every private sacrifice. Every moment you held your tongue, held your ground, held your faith. It's all being honored. Right now. Not in the way the world celebrates, but in the way heaven releases assignments, quietly, but with power, and as it unfolds, you won't have to beg for understanding. You won't have to prove your worth. You won't need anyone's permission to move, you'll just know. So here's the final truth, my friend, this moment you're stepping into. It's not a result of luck or coincidence. It's the natural progression of someone who's proven trustworthy in silence. God kept record, not just of your faith, but of your restraint. He saw the self-control you exercised when everything in you wanted to lash out. He saw your quiet obedience in rooms filled with noise and distraction. He watched you choose humility when pride would have been easier. He noted every time you stayed soft when bitterness could have taken over. And in heaven's system, that's not just noted, it's rewarded. Most people will never understand what it's taken for you to get here. They'll see the fruit, but they won't know the roots. They'll admire your calm without realizing it was trained in chaos. They'll celebrate your peace, unaware that you fought for it night after night, in tears, in prayer, in total silence. They'll witness your stability without ever knowing how many storms you endured just to stand this still. But you'll know that you'll remember the dark nights, the silent battles, the days where hope was just a whisper you clung to. You'll remember that nothing about your strength came easy, it was all earned. And that's what makes this sacred. Heaven didn't hand this to you casually. This was never about status. It was a spiritual assignment from the beginning, wrapped in silence, wrapped in misunderstanding, wrapped in a weight that would have crushed a different kind of soul. This is what I was built for. But you carried it with reverence, and God never forgot that. What's unfolding now doesn't require you to chase it. You don't need to strive, prove, or compete. Why? Because God saw how you walked. He saw how you listened. He saw how you kept showing up even when it cost you everything, when no one said thank you, when it felt like no one noticed, when it looked like nothing was shifting, but He noticed, and now, He's moving, doors are opening that you didn't knock on. Opportunities are finding you without a resume attached. Not because of your hustle, but because of your consistency in private. This is the moment when divine trust becomes divine transfer, and it will feel strange at first. It may feel like you're walking into rooms you were never invited to. But that's okay, because you weren't invited, you were sent. You don't need validation when you're on assignment. You're being placed, not because of a title, but because of trust. God is putting you where your calm is needed. Where your presence brings order. Where your words activate healing. Where your discernment reveals what's been hidden. Where your very being exposes lies just by standing in truth. This is what spiritual trust looks like. It's not applause. It's placement. You've already handled being overlooked. Now, heaven is going to show you what happens when you're seen by the right ones. The ones who don't drain your energy but honor it. The ones who don't need to understand everything about you to respect what you carry. The ones who can feel the weight of God's presence on your life and know they're in front of someone chosen. You're not being promoted, you're being revealed that there's a big difference. Promotion makes people think you climbed some ladder. But revelation, that's when what was always within you starts to become visible, obvious, undeniable. You've carried divine qualities for years. Grace that broke generational patterns. Wisdom that preserved others without ever wounding them. Compassion that pulled people from the edge without them realizing it, and you've carried it all quietly. But now, God is saying, move in the same authority, but this time, without the same weight. You're about to step into something new, not because you're chasing influence, but because you've become the kind of person who can handle it. You've been tested, refined, and trained not just by life, but by heaven. And now, the weight that once felt crushing is being lifted, because it has done its job. It shaped you, so walk forward. Not arrogantly, but confidently. You've been trusted with oil that others would have misused. You've been trusted with a calling that others would have traded for applause. You've been trusted with revelation that doesn't belong to the surface level, and now, you're being trusted with more, but this time, it's not just about what you carry. It's about who you've become. You're no longer just someone who survived the process, you've embodied it, you've turned pain into wisdom. Silence into insight. Loneliness into depth. And all of that has prepared you for this moment. You're not walking into the next season as a beggar hoping to be seen, you're walking in as a trusted one, carrying peace, carrying purpose. Carrying presence, so when the shift happens, when the favor comes, when the placement aligns, when the room's open, don't flinch, don't second guess it, don't shrink, you've already been prepared for this. This isn't the moment to explain yourself. It's the moment to walk in what you already know. To trust the voice that led you through the fire. To trust the stillness that kept you grounded. To trust that if God brought you here, He's already gone ahead of you. So what do you do now? You walk with it, you honor it, you speak from it, only when necessary. You love with it, but without overextending, you protect it, not because it's weak, but because it's precious. You don't need to justify the fire in your eyes anymore, or the way you pray, or why some people feel uncomfortable around you. You were never called to fit in with the surface, you were called to live from the Spirit. You know why you're here, you know what you carry, and more importantly, God does too. So if you've been feeling that sense, like something's been watching, testing, observing your spirit, it's real. You've been in a divine evaluation room. Not to disqualify you, but to confirm you, and the results are in, you passed, the shift has already begun. You'll feel it, not just in how doors open, but in how your peace stays. Even when the world shakes. Even when others panic. That's what divine trust brings, not popularity, stability. So as you move forward, remember, God didn't just choose you because He loves you. He chose you because He could trust you, with oil, with silence, with weight, with revelation, and now, with influence. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. If this message resonated with you, please like the video and share it with someone who may need this today. And don't forget to subscribe, and keep walking in your calling by watching the video that's showing on your screen right now. I'll see you there.